I caught an Uber for the first time in a long time recently, and the driver was bemoaning the sad state of affairs, which I'm sure is shared by many in the ride hailing industry at the moment. As an Uber driver in Joburg, he was used to picking up passengers from the airport at least 3 times a day. That really was his main source of income, but he now is likely to go only once a week. And he also said that despite the fact that Uber did try to support them, he and other drivers unfortunately have struggled just due to the nature of the pandemic. They're struggling financially, they're struggling psychologically, clearly. Many have fallen into arrears on their rent to own agreements on their cars. And it's a tale that I'm sure is shared amongst so many in so many different industries. So, what's happening now that the economy is starting to open up again? And what are the lessons learned for the ride hailing industry? Well, I'm joined now by Frans Hiemstra. He's the GM for Uber Sub-Saharan Africa. France, a difficult time for all businesses. Welcome to Business Talk. What were some of the challenges of running an e-hailing business during the COVID-19 pandemic, apart from obviously ensuring that your drivers were safe and they weren't transporting the virus around the country? And how has Uber really sought to overcome many of those challenges? We're almost 1 year away from that fateful date where we went into lockdown.
Yeah, thank you. Really nice to be on your show. Really, really good question. So if we dial back a year ago, imagine having, as a mobility business, having the government say that people can't move around anymore. It obviously impacted our business significantly, and we really had to go back to basics and try and reinvent what we already had built by now. And it's what you're describing at the airport is something that we experienced even worse in level 5 and level 4 lockdown, where people were just not moving around. So we had to pivot really quickly. And I think that the first thing that we did is we spun up a delivery business where we saw the need for people getting essentials delivered to them. Businesses, supply chains fell apart, and we launched a product for Uber driver partners to actually deliver goods and essentials for businesses or for customers. So you could either have if you need to send something to your sister-in-law across town, you can request an Uber and you can put that in an Uber Connect. So I think that was the first thing that we did, and we started moving things that at that point mattered a lot more. We were able to get things moving with some of the social impact initiatives that we were able to plug into. We started an amazing partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where they identified a need in the Western Cape, where the Department of Transport's supply chain completely fell apart, and they couldn't deliver chronic meds to community centers and townships. And within 1 or 2 days, we spun up that partnership and funded a big portion of it. And to date, we have delivered, I think it's around 1.4 million pieces of chronic meds to people in communities that need it. But as I say this, I think what we had to do is try and find ways to get drivers moving very quickly and earning an income again. So a lot of that is the sort of early response. And then I don't think it is reasonable to exclude the health and safety moves that we had to make. Like we had to implement a no mask, no ride policy. So we've got some really neat tech solutions for that. We've got facial recognition for driver partners and riders, so to check that you're wearing a mask. So before a driver goes online, they take a selfie. And the same goes for riders. If a rider is found not to wear a mask, they will get reported, and then the next time they ride, they'll be asked to submit that they're actually wearing a mask. So all of that had to adjust, and we had to move really quickly on getting that changed.
That partnership with the Western Cape government is shared, I think, across other sectors, where if there's a silver lining to this very dark cloud of the pandemic, it's that it's created a space for the private sector and for government to rebuild some lost trust and to repair those broken bridges over the last 10 years. Would you say, looking back over the last 12 months, that has been a key benefit to have emerged from all of this?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Interestingly, I had a meeting with Alan Windy 2 weeks ago, and that was one of his first things that he opened with. It's amazing how Uber in the Western Cape has managed to help government out there. I think that's a good bridge that we've built. But the other interesting thing is how engagement with government has moved virtually, where in the past we want to engage with a MEC for transport in a province somewhere. We would have to wait months to get a meeting, and now it just happens really quickly. And it's actually been so refreshing to rebuild our relationships with government officials in a very modern way. So I suppose that's a consequence of living in a virtual world.
Now, when customers get onto the app again, and we're now, in level one, there's obviously a lot of fear around the looming Easter vacation, that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past that lead to an outsized third wave. But currently, what are you seeing, and what can consumers expect when they book on Uber today? Is there still this inertia around catching an Uber at a time when the pandemic hasn't completely left us?
Yeah. So I suppose we do see a direct correlation to whether there's a lockdown in place or not when our business picks up. But it was really nice to see as we moved back into level one, the positive inertia on our business. I think we need to make sure that people are aware of everything we put in place to keep them as safe as possible in cars. And I mentioned the COVID hygiene protocols that we have in place, but it is really good to see people moving again. What has changed is why people are moving around, the use cases that they're moving around. For an example, late night outs is something that is just not a thing for us anymore, but we're starting to see the shopping use case pick up. We're starting to see people rather do, our lunch times are busier than what I suppose our dinners were in the past. So I think we are seeing some change in how people move. And the other one is, as people move to working from home, there's no need to have two cars anymore. And often in a family, they're selling one of their cars or selling both of their cars, and then realizing because they're moving relatively less than before, they can actually just use Uber as their primary mode of transport. So I think we do see we've seen positive moves, but the landscape has fundamentally changed.
I was thinking about that the other day, how this might permanently alter the landscape for the vehicle industry, the automotive industry, which we've so heavily subsidized in South Africa. For ride hailing, it's changed the way we eat. Chatting to the Spur CEO the other day, Val was really in praise of the partnership that she's got with the likes of an Uber Eats. It must have been a godsend over lockdown, just given that people weren't able to travel around that much last year. What did you see in the Uber Eats side of the business?
Yeah, it was phenomenal to see the growth there. And I suppose it wasn't just the restaurant growth where you order food already. The thing that really picked up was grocery deliveries. And we were able to start moving essential goods around in the time that you weren't allowed to move everything like cooked food. We were able to move essential goods, and it's really expanded the scope of Uber Eats. I think people aren't going to stop using Amazon. They're not going to stop using Uber Eats, and they're going to continue ordering online. So I think it was really good to see that. It was also a lot of learnings for us in working with government. In the level 5 lockdowns, you saw that they at the beginning banned Uber Eats and all food delivery, and we managed to work with government to unlock that. But yes, the landscape in the delivery space has evolved, and it's been positive. It's allowed our courier business to grow, and at the same time, it also has allowed driver partners to get access to some additional business. While the mobility business was down, drivers were able to call it cross dispatch over onto Uber Eats.
I want to talk about your delivery business, but stay on Uber Eats just for a second longer, because it's a service that I use fairly regularly, and it's often very good. There are times when the driver's got 3 or 4 different deliveries to make and the food arrives a little bit cold. Is there thinking around how we can have I wouldn't mind paying a slight premium just to ensure that I'm the one delivery on that particular route?
Yeah, to be honest, it's on us to make sure that whether we're batching you with 3 orders or sending it directly, that your food needs to be in a good condition and warm. It's actually a very interesting proposal. I'll definitely flag it with our Eats team. But as you can imagine, the logic behind a batch delivery is I suppose economies of scale for couriers as well. It's more efficient for them. But it's an interesting proposal. As you speak, we have a pass that we've launched, Uber Pass, which gives you mobility and Eats benefits. And maybe this is a great idea to add that as a benefit to the Uber Pass, that you get your delivery sent straight to you versus sharing a bike with two other hungry people.
Well, Frans, you can take that one for nothing. I'll certainly pay a slight premium if there's a guarantee on the other end of it. Back to your parcel delivery service, that must be something that, as the economy opens up, you're starting to see gain real traction. How's that looking for you?
Yeah, it's been great. As I said earlier, the landscape has changed on what people want to order from us. And yeah, we've got, I suppose there's two pieces. The first one is our customer to customer business, which we call Uber Connect, which you can just do through your app if you're sending something to somebody directly. We've got small businesses using that service as well. And then a bigger direct integrations with our Uber Eats platform, and it's not necessarily for food, is also growing really nicely. So I think it's a big piece of our business in South Africa that's growing, and globally our whole delivery business is moving in the right direction.
Now, you were in the news for all the wrong reasons not too long ago, that the legal battle between drivers and yourselves. Where are we in that court case to determine whether Uber drivers are in fact employees or independent contractors, and how does that really affect the company going forward?
Yeah, good question. So at this stage, no legal steps have actually been taken. It's simply been a press release that was made with an intention to file. So we'll obviously take this on board and review, but in the meantime, nothing changes in the app for driver partners or for riders. I think it would be irresponsible to speculate based on what's currently out in the media. But I really believe that we're a prime example of how a business model like ours that offers tech for independent transporters can give access, a lot easier access to income earning opportunities that were totally out of reach in not even many years back. I think we've always been super upfront with our model when drivers and couriers have signed up, and I'm quite encouraged by the data that we've seen over the last pretty much decades since we've been operating. The vast majority of platform workers have consistently said that they don't necessarily want to be employees because of the value that the flexibility that they get gives them. So while I say that, I don't believe that flexibility and economic opportunity should come at the cost of peace of mind for our customers, being driver partners. So I think we've done a lot to bridge the gap there. We've introduced a bunch of additional benefits. I suppose one of them is our partner injury protection insurance that driver partners have access to. We've got access to quality and affordable private healthcare cover that driver partners can purchase that we've negotiated on their behalf. Obviously, all of this is voluntary for drivers, but we want to make sure that as much as possible, we've got things in place to make up for that. Another thing that we want to make sure that when we look at a driver partner's cost base, we've done everything possible to reduce their cost base. And we've got a wonderful deal with BP, where if drivers go through the partnership that we've signed up, they can get fuel rebates, which is a big driver of cost for driver partners. So I must be honest, at a time when we need more jobs, not fewer, I think Uber and other platforms can really be a bridge to a sustainable recovery post COVID. So I'm really hoping that we can work this out in the best way for all parties.
And that is the bottom line for all parties here at the end of the day. They and that is the Uber drivers, whenever I chat to them, are brand ambassadors for Uber. And in the main, when I've driven with an Uber driver, they've really loved the model. They've loved the economic opportunity and what it's opened up for them. And many have grown their businesses to sort of a fleet of cars with other drivers as well. That was prior to the pandemic, and I do think the pandemic has just it's altered the landscape, as we said earlier. With what has come out of the pandemic, any insights that have effectively, if you look at Uber's business model, that have caused you to sit down and reflect and say, right, we're going to have to effectively change the way we approach our business model on the continent going forward. Has it altered the business to such an extent?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I suppose innovation has always been part of our business, and we always want to continuously improve. But this was a real shock to the system, and I think we really had to quickly move to use our technology to create solutions to problems that we didn't know we actually had in the past. And what was really nice to see and critical to our survival actually has been our ability to adapt to circumstances and meeting changing needs of our customers and our communities. And I think a good example of that is how we've realized that if you look at 1 in 3 people have lost their jobs through the pandemic. Everybody's pocket is under pressure. So specifically price sensitive customers, we actually introduced a more affordable product called Uber Go, which offers the same service, same safety features, same experience. However, you might be in a smaller hatchback, but essentially you're getting a lot more affordable service to get around some more. And I think the other things that we realized we had to launch, and I referred to it a little bit earlier, was Uber Pass. We've got people that use Uber Eats now even more than before, and then we've got people that use both platforms, and Uber Pass unlocks savings on both. So this is something that we had to introduce at a very critical time to make our business more sustainable and affordable for our customers. So I think that bottom line is be ready to adapt, make sure that you can pivot quickly, but at the same time, make sure it sits within your 5-10 year plan that you need to have guiding and guarding your business.
And I want to come back to that ability to pivot quickly and the adaptability, because I do think those must be some key take homes and lessons out of this pandemic, not just for Uber. I think for most businesses that have seen their business model upended almost overnight. But before that, you mentioned earlier Uber Go. And you say that you get it with all of the usual service offerings of Uber, things like safety. But and I think here in the South African context, safety must remain one of the big challenges in the South African ecosystem in which Uber operates. In particular, other forms of public transport are notorious for being a little rickety. Frans, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges facing public transport in the country today?
Yeah, so I suppose if you look at us, we were initially a disruption to the public transport industry, and we faced our fair share of challenges as a result of entering the market, and I'm sure we'll face some challenges going ahead. I do think that we are going to see a fundamental shift in the transport landscape over the coming years, and I really want us to continue to encourage that innovation and encourage the transport sector to evolve rather than push back against change. I think a big thing for us is a lack of, and not across the board, but a lack of smart regulations, which can be an obstacle for us. We no doubt we want to be regulated. And we want to make sure that those transport policies that were drafted years before even smartphones existed, that these are adapted to work for technology. And we've actually been doing a lot of work, working closely with regulators to help them shape the future of regulations. The benefit we have is we can bring best practice from other markets that we operate in. But to be frank, it's been quite a frustration with bottlenecks in the licensing process, which is not just felt by us. This is a challenge that goes across the minibus and meter taxi industry, where they're struggling to get their licenses issued. I think a beautiful thing that we will see we're starting to see governments and economies realize that they can really reap the benefits of innovative business model, whether it's an app or a new service being introduced, and they are adapting their policy frameworks to move in the right direction. I think they're learning that it's not the right thing to over-regulate, but make sure that there are friendly regulations in place that are good for business and essentially good for private partners. It'll be good for the economy. It'll be good for unemployment. So I think there's overarching challenges, but nothing that I think we're not tackling in the best way that we can.
It certainly speaks to what the president made one of his top priorities when he first took over, to ensure the ease of doing business in South Africa and to move us from somewhere, I think, around 80 to in the top 50, according to the World Bank's ease of doing business rankings. And part of that is regulating smartly and regulating with a fit for purpose framework and adapting, there's that word again, to these disruptors such as Uber. And in terms of lessons, if you look back in the rear view mirror of the last 12 months, what's the big lesson for you?
Yeah, I keep referring to it, but survival of a business is dependent on your ability to adapt to your circumstances and really meet the changing needs of your communities and your customers. The other thing is nothing is certain. So you can have a long-term plan, but you need to be ready to change if you need to. And I think the pandemic thrust this upon us. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson that I took out of the pandemic. And then always look for your next opportunity. We spoke about delivery earlier. We didn't foresee delivery moving so quickly, and we didn't see grocery moving into Uber Eats so quickly. We didn't see a more affordable product like Uber Go so quickly, and all of this was pushed by the disruption that we saw in the world. So make sure that you're ready to change and ready to adjust to the environment.
Absolutely, and to be able to scale and ride that change, and also not scale to fail. Frans, great pleasure hailing your insights into the world of Uber and public transport in this pandemic period, and good luck in growing the business, in continuing to deliver those services, and I'll be looking out for that Uber Eats suggestion in the not too distant future. Take care.
Fantastic. Thanks, Michael.
That was Frans Hiemstra, General Manager of Uber Sub-Saharan Africa, sharing the Uber story over the last 12 months during this pandemic. Very tough, but Uber has certainly displayed all of those qualities that make successful businesses: resilience, adaptability, and innovation, all of them in bucket loads. Sharing his story with us here on Business Talk with me, Michael Avery.